welcome back into cherry picking today's video. A little bit of a different style. Babs and I will be running through our NHL award predictions. So looking at the Hart Trophy, the Selke, the Jack Adams, the Norris, and I believe one other one. As always, video presented by FanDuel Canada, North America's #1 sportsbook. That link is in the description below. Hopefully we disagree on some of these. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the top ones, if you disagree on, you're kind of a little crazy for the most part.
Fair.
But on the second, third, fourth, they can get a little wild, I suppose, depending on what your take is. Especially, I mean, like the Hart, I mean, we're probably going to be pretty similar. Defenseman against, but then anything after that.
We'll see. All right, let's get in the video. All right, Babs, give me your top 4 for the Hart Trophy.
Leon Draisaitl, I think everyone's going to be consensus on that.
Fair enough.
Nikita Kucherov, a guy who, with less pieces, is now able to still get the job done. Maybe not less pieces, different pieces in Tampa Bay. Nathan MacKinnon, always going to be on this list as long as he's in the NHL. And then I have Jack Eichel.
Jack Eichel, why do you have Eichel there? I like that. Like he's been a huge part of why Vegas has been so good this year.
So Jack Eichel, 4th in the league in plus minus, barely any penalty minutes. I believe he's got 6, and he's been a consistent scorer for his team. So overall, his entire game on that line, I mean, you have to give it to him. He's been performing, I'd say, about what you would expect, but the defensive stuff, I mean, there's just no lapses in this.
Yeah, very good. Maybe a Selke is in his near future. Who knows? But you left one guy off the list that I think absolutely deserves to win it, but if not, deserves to be in the top 3 in terms of voting, and it's Connor Hellebuyck. Another amazing regular season. Like, we didn't even put the Vezina in this because we knew he's winning the Vezina. It's not even close at this point. There's only been 2 other goalies who have led all 4 major goalie categories in the regular season: wins, save percentage, goals against, and shutouts. Connor Hellebuyck leads all 4 of those. The 2 of them that did it were Bernie Parent years ago and Jacques Plante, and they both went on to win the Stanley Cup. If the Hart Trophy was around then, they probably won the Hart Trophy as well. I think Hellebuyck should absolutely win the Hart. We need someone else other than a player to win the Hart Trophy, so I think Hellebuyck for sure. I agree with Draisaitl, it's hard not to, but the reason why I think I put Hellebuyck in front, like Matthews scored 69 goals last year and he didn't win the Hart. Like, that's kind of crazy. So I think if you think of Draisaitl in that sense, it's similar. And then I have Kucherov and Nathan MacKinnon. I loved what you said about Kucherov in terms of, like, he's able to still do this. Like, if you look at Draisaitl and MacKinnon, like, Draisaitl has McDavid. MacKinnon had Rantanen for a good part of the season, but then also has Kale McCarr and Marty Necas as well. And the Lightning have good assets, but I think Kucherov is the most valuable to his team out of those 3 players for sure. All right, the Calder Trophy. I'm assuming we have the same number 1.
I think anyone does. The betting odds would show you that you're kind of an idiot, too, if you don't go this way. And also just the kid plays so smooth.
He's amazing. And look, I'm a Habs fan, so it's a little bit biased, but like, no one has ever had a rookie defenseman season like this, or it's been a very long time. None when I've been alive. I believe the stat, he's the first rookie defenseman to reach 60 points since 1991 or 1992. He's broken a ton of records in terms of accolades along the way. Fastest, I think, Canadians player to 50 assists, I think, breaking or tying Chris Chelios' record. Same with Nick Lindstrom as well. The 5th fastest player in NHL history or defenseman in NHL history to reach 40 assists. Took him 56 games. Like, those are all amazing company to be a part of at this point. So he is the shoe-in. But who would you put at, like, number 2, let's say, or 3, 4?
Dustin Wolf, he's having a great year. But part of the reason why I have to give him a little bit more credit is this Calgary Flames team is, like, kind of broken.
No, they're not good. Like, this was supposed to be a rebuild year.
Yeah. They're not, like, it's just not a cohesive hockey team, and yet he's been able to steal games for them.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
And without him, I mean, like, we really thought after, they get rid of their number 1, they're going to be in a position to probably get pumped this year, and he's sort of kept them relevant.
Yeah.
And it's been impressive, but the team's not cohesive, and he's been able to kind of bring them together and put them, in a spot where in the 3rd period they're able to be competitive in games. And that's a lot of credit to him, but he's had a long time to get to here.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
You do have to give him his flowers now.
Yeah. And then I think the last 2 guys that I have on my list, because I'm similar, Lane Hudson, Dustin Wolf, and then I have Macklin Celebrini and Matvei Michkov. You think if Torts got fired earlier, maybe Michkov would edge out Celebrini here? I just think Celebrini's a much better 2-way player, right?
Yeah, well, Celebrini plays a different game too. Like, San Jose's given him a lot more runway as opposed to Michkov didn't have runway in Philadelphia. Like, that just wasn't a thing. No. If you give Michkov runway, I think by far he could be up there in a conversation is definitely probably the number 2. But he didn't have runway. He had whatever Philadelphia was this year.
Yeah.
But Celebrini has shown just that he's doing the things and he's been put in all the different situations. And I think, Michkov kind of got the short end of the stick. It's too bad they didn't get rid of Torts last year. I think actually Philly would be in a much better spot giving those guys, the young guys, their opportunity to get right in there and do the thing as opposed to just this bullshit that basically we saw out of Philadelphia.
It was long overdue. I think everyone can agree on that. Yeah, it was long overdue. But the Calder seems like, I think a lot of people have very similar votes. Will you have Wolf at number 2, Celebrini at number 2? But I think the clear-cut winner at this point has to be Lane Hudson.
And I've Cutter Gauthier at number 4. I think he deserves a lot of credit. Again, it ties into the Philadelphia thing where it's probably good he got out because he's able to have a good rookie season this year. But he's on a team that struggled, but he's plus 9 right now. It's pretty good. He's been able to be competitive. That second line, he's working with decent pieces. So, it's not like he's playing on the worst team in the NHL. They're just not great. So I think you got to give him his flowers too, though. He's had a very good season for a rookie, especially a guy who was getting just dogged by everybody last year.
Yeah.
Now he's back in a spot and he's able to perform with no pressure in Anaheim.
Anaheim has had a pretty strong finish to the year. Like their record isn't going to be as bad as a lot of people think when you actually go and look at it at this point compared to let's say San Jose or Chicago. So I think next year is when Anaheim really takes that step.
And the one point I wanted to make is he's had very few defensive zone puck losses, and for rookies, that's often a problem as they're kind of sloppy in their own zone. Very, very few this season.
All right, for the Norris Trophy, it's been talked about all year, really the top 3 favorites, and it's kind of been shifting everywhere, but it's Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, and Quinn Hughes. Out of those 3, who do you have winning?
It's hard not to give it to Cale Makar almost every single year. He's one of the most consistent players, especially as a defenseman. Werenski, though, you got to give him some credit too. But I just think that in terms of overall value, I think Cale's more valuable to his team, so that's why I think gives him the edge.
And you look at the points. Cale Makar has 11 more points, I believe, already than Werenski. He has 8 more goals than Werenski. He almost has double the amount of goals as Quinn Hughes. It would be awesome to see Werenski win it, and it's great to see him have a full, healthy season where he's actually playing up to the potential that everyone's kind of been hoping for, but it's impossible not to give it to Cale Makar. And so who do you have in your 4th spot?
So my 4th spot, even though he's been hurt since January 28th, Miro Heiskanen, he deserves the credit because he's been very good. He was playing 25 minutes.
Oh, yeah. He's a workhorse.
Yeah, and he doesn't, it's not just he's a good shutdown defenseman, he's a good offensive defenseman. He actually kind of does a good mixture of both. Oh, yeah. And if he hadn't been hurt, he would have been great to see at the Four Nations. And this Dallas team's able to get away with not having him right now because they're so good. But when you add him to their lineup, it's hard to say that they aren't going to be a Stanley Cup contender this year. So I really like Miro. You can't give him number 1 because he hasn't played the whole season. And Quinn's also been injured as well.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where you just kind of have to give him, that 4th spot, but he's one of the best defensemen in the NHL, bar none.
I think there's a couple guys you can give or argue to give the 4th spot. I have Hedman as my 4th on if I were to have a Norris ballot. 60 points this year. I think last year the Lightning defensive unit as a whole was relatively disappointing. You get rid of Sergachev. You think maybe it's probably going to get worse, even though you bring in McDonough. And I think Hedman, and you can give some credit to McDonough, have done a really good job of molding those younger guys that they have, like Perbix, JJ Moser, Lilberg, guys like that, Darren Radish. And I think Hedman deserves some credit there. Not the reason why you should win a Norris, but still 60 points this year is still a very solid number.
Yeah, McDonough's actually had a really good season. Statistically, all the basic statistics he's kind of nailed on. So it's good for him. And it's interesting to see how this Lightning team that people thought were probably not going to have regression.
Yeah.
They kind of look better.
They look just as good, if not better than last year. All right, the Selke Trophy, which is Barkov's trophy now as much as it was Bergeron's. But I have someone other at number 1, who I know you have Barkov at number 1, sorry. Yes. But why do you have Barkov at number 1?
He's just the guy.
He is the guy for this trophy. It should be called the Barkov Trophy.
Well, honestly, because he just does everything, and it's not even just that you see him do the flashy stuff where he's stripping pucks away. It's the little stuff. He's rarely out of position. He's just in the defensive zone. He's a very valuable player. So you got to give him the credit for that. You never see this guy make overtly bad moves in the defensive zone, and then all the other additional stuff he does correctly there.
Yeah, he is the epitome of what this award gives out to, or the type of player you need to be to win this award, just like Bergeron was. But with Reinhart, so there's a stat evolving hockey tracks, and it's goals above replacement, similar to wins above replacement in baseball, but it pretty much quantifies how valuable a player is to a team's like goal differential, plus or minus, positive, effectively. It's broken down into a bunch of different categories, and one of them is even strength defense. Sam Reinhart leads all forwards this year in that category in terms of being that valuable to their team and adding, I think it's 8 goals to their plus minus even strength defense. So I think that's kind of hard to ignore. I think he's done a really good job filling the role when Barkov's missed like 10, 12 games this year. So that's why I would give the edge to Reinhart there. But then another guy I think deserves a credit for this year is Nico Hischier, especially with how banged up the Devils have been throughout the year, and now with Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton out. He's played such a good two-way game since he's been in the league, but especially since those guys have been hurt, and it's hard to not, I think, actually just give him a little bit of credit towards this award at least.
Yeah, my next guy, people always kind of rag on him, but it's going to be Mitch Marner. He's a very effective penalty killer. Mm-hmm. We've seen it through and through. And the way he's played his game has changed a little bit with the Craig Berube system. So he's made also a lot less of compared to years previous where they're trying to break out and he puts the puck up in the dead zone of the middle and turns it over. He's done a lot less of that stuff, or just the no-look backhand move to a defenseman while they're trying to break out of the zone and then he turns the puck over. Way less of that this year. So now that he's cleared that defensive problem up with his game and not doing those stupid up-the-middle plays, I think we've seen him be a very effective player, and this Leafs team desperately needs him to do that role. Otherwise, in
the playoffs, for sure, yeah. And I agree. I think Mitch Marner doesn't get enough credit for the two-way game that he plays, and I think that's somewhat of an ode to Sheldon Keefe as well, because he kind of forced him to become a penalty killer. Same with Austin Matthews. But I have Barkov third, and then Kopitar fourth. I feel like LA's been so good this year, near the end of the season here as well at home. They've been one of the best. I think they have a point or almost a point in 16 in their last 17 home games, which is insane. Kopitar leading that first line with Kempe, and just as what he's done for that team, the two-way center that he's been in this league for years, I think he deserves to at least get a couple votes. Maybe not win it, but up there for sure.
My next guy, and this is probably pretty out there, is Rupe Hintz. I've watched him play on this first line, and one thing that I did like is I watched 85 clips of his defensive zone positive stats, so the things that he does right in the defensive zone. So we're looking at penalties drawn, hits, breakouts, won puck battles, and he's been fantastic doing that this year. And he's also 53% on the faceoff dot in the new year alone. So he's been a very valuable tool for them in the defensive zone. But you just look at what he does there. I'm not going to say it's similar to Barkov because it's very hard to match that level of defensive competency. But he does do a lot of those little things, and he's not a liability in the defensive zone really ever. But yeah, watching his clips last night, it really solidifies him that I think he's a guy that should be on everyone's list, but he probably won't be.
All right, the last trophy we will be talking about award, the Jack Adams. I'll go through my 4, and then I want you to do your 4. Mm-hmm. I have Spencer Carberry, Dean Evison, Scott Arniel, and then Martin St. Louis. Mm-hmm. You?
Okay, so I do have Spencer as well. I've got Scott Arniel. I mean, the Jets, you got to include them here. Big move for him. Craig Berube, biased probably.
Both of us a little biased.
And then it's still fuck you, but Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, Keefe was I feel like a front runner at the beginning of the year, along with Carberry's always kind of been in the mix. Mm-hmm. So the two that I have, Carberry I think is almost like a shoe-in for this award this year. If you see how the Capitals have kind of turned this season around from last year, they made the playoffs, but one of the worst goal differentials to ever make the playoffs, and now this year, could potentially win the President's Trophy, looking like that could be the case here. I think Dean Evison, for me, how good, no one thought Columbus was going to be in a playoff race this year, especially with everything that happened in the offseason before. I think that's an ode to Dean Evison to be able to, get this group behind something. And man, some of the forwards on that team have played phenomenal. And then St. Louis, the first time St. Louis played with his actual entire roster without someone being hurt was in December. 220 games or something he played with a half-ass roster because guys were hurt and he didn't have the proper guys that he would have liked on the roster. So he deserves a ton of credit because the Canadians right now with this playoff race, this is an extra cherry on top for the fans.
No, and I think you got to give the Caps a lot of credit with what they've been able to recover from last year because that goal differential was absolutely insane. But the reason why I like Spencer so much in this situation, one, South Carolina Stingrays alumni, but he worked in Hershey with my buddy David Helmer. And this is a guy who worked up from the coast. And when you do that, it gives you a very strong idea of what happens if you don't live up to your potential. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a coach being able to communicate that to his players the same way that Gerard Bednar can do the same thing because he worked his way up coast, AHL, and to the NHL. I think it allows you to be able to keep guys accountable and use those as learning experience and say, hey guys, I've been down in this shit. You need to take the opportunity and do the best you can with it. So I really like what he's done as well. Leafs alumni too.
Leafs alumni, yeah, and I mean, I think everyone thought Pierre-Luc Dubois' career was done, and that trade was horrible, and he's been fantastic this season.
I think we kind of even alluded to that last year too. So Yeah, no, the Caps definitely. The goal differential change is just absurd. I don't know if we've seen somebody make that dramatic of a turnaround.
Yeah, seriously, it's probably has to be some sort of record.
Probably, yeah. And Craig Berube, though, we had the conversation. Toronto's been much more defensively sound. You got to give them credit for that. And he was also able to turn the ship pretty quick. It's a different style of play that Toronto runs, and they're able to kind of not have as many we need to win the game 6 or we need to win the game 7-6 tonight. There's a lot less of that, even though the Sharks game was just an absolute blowout.
They lead the NHL in games 1 being outshot, and I think that's an ode to them being solid defensively. Obviously, their goaltending has been good. But I think Berube has certainly changed kind of the aura around this team, for sure.
And having Tanev's obviously been a ginormous help to the team.
Has been great, too.
Yeah, they've been able to get the right pieces in there. Obviously, it's Toronto, so they have 1 or 2 bad games. People are going to freak out. So I do think that does take away a little bit from what Berube has been able to do, just because of how annoying the media is in Toronto and just the little mistakes. And they always want to rag on Marner or find someone just that's the problem guy. But yeah, and then Sheldon Keefe, you kind of have to take a little bit of the criticism away from last season because of how well he's done with this New Jersey Devils team. I was one of the guys that said he was a bum. Clearly, I'm wrong. The Devils, I don't know if they're going to have a long playoff run. I'm suspecting they won't. But he's done a good job being able to hop in there. They were kind of a disaster shit show at the end of last year. It was not
so many
good.
injuries. They got their goalie. He's been great.
That helps too, for sure. Having an actual number 1 in there is going to make a big difference.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know what you thought of our NHL award predictions. Drop your predictions below as well. Would love to see everyone's top 4 for each award that we talked about. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video, and we'll see you guys next time.